this is one area that's been bugging us the last couple of years. We got the hardwoods in the entry here. We did this vinyl composite tile in the laundry room here several years ago. And you can move those, they're not even attached. But what we'll end up with here is, I've got this transition here from the hardwoods to this. We're going to bring the hardwoods out to about here, and I'm going to make a little transition strip out of this flooring to come out to about this edge here, and then run it down the table saw to taper, so it comes down to about 1/8 of an inch thick to match up with this. And my thinking is just to run the VCT right up to that without trying to do another strip that lays over everything that would make it taller. That's my thinking. We'll have to see how that works out. First, I'm going to remove this tape and get everything cleaned up. Maybe sand this down a little bit. It seems a little high in spots. Try to get this all figured out. I got some screws holding down this temporary strip I can pull up. Got the VCT in. Make a new transitional piece for this, and see if we can get everything to come in and look nice together. That'll be so nice instead of stepping over this every day. I think I originally intended just to make a T-strip to cover these screws and to overlap onto the VCT and just run everything right to the middle of the doorway. But like I said, I've kind of rethought how I want to do this and run a piece out and taper it down. But I can't remember if I fastened the tongue down to the floor. So I'm removing these trim head screws, and then I'll see if I can remove this piece easily. And if I can, then I'll use my new plan. If I can't, I'll have to go back to my old plan. Feels like it's been fastened. Might have to go back to plan A. Doesn't seem like I glued it, because that's what happens when you take a couple of years to get back to a project, which is our life, is you forget how you put things together. That I wouldn't be able to slide my putty knife down like that if I would have glued it, and I don't think I would have stapled this tongue. I'm going to see if I can maybe just work it out, pull it out by putting a screw in that hole and maybe trying to pry out on it. Yeah, it's stuck. I'm thinking I must have stapled that tongue down that you can't see now because the groove of this board is over it. I can't imagine why else it would be holding on so tightly. Yeah, that ain't coming up. If I wanted to take that up, I'd risk damaging this joint here. So looks like I might be better off just running my VCT tile back up to this edge and then just creating a thin oak strip stain to match this that just goes over that as a transition strip, just to cover that that transition there between the two materials. I'll have to think about it for a minute, see if that's the way I want to go. Well, I ended up putting these screws back in. I thought if I pulled those out, I could just separate at this seam here, but obviously I must have stapled this tongue down to the subfloor before I put this next piece on, because this thing doesn't want to go anywhere, and I don't feel like potentially damaging the next piece or causing other problems. So I think what we'll do is go back to plan A, just run our VCT tile right up to that. It's, you know, pretty close, and then just make a small transition strip to cover where the two materials meet at that threshold, and just make it look as nice as we can and take our time and go with that route. pull those up, get some adhesive down. We gotta wait for that adhesive to dry clear. Once it's dry clear, it's a contact adhesive type glue. Because my transition height changes from this floor to this floor, I can't just put the regular piece of baseboard on there. If I do that, I've got a big spot down here that's floating above the floor, so I need to make a custom piece of baseboard for this wrap. It comes here and then drops down deeper for that side. So I found a thicker piece. This is a 1x6 instead of a 1x5. So I can notch out the bottom so that it drops down to the right height for that, and then cut the bottom off of this side so it matches to that. Kind of a pain, but that's what I gotta do. If I make a cut like this, then I won't end up with a big gap here. We'll see how it works out. Alright, let's see if that works. Looks good across there. And now this drops down. This drops down to the floor now, so there's no big gap here. And then this transition strip that we're going to put across here, that we're making out of wood, will cover up this transition here, so it should look pretty nice when we're done. I got to do another one on that side. My shed is an absolute mess right now. I've got so many different projects going on, I just haven't had a chance to clean things up. But I've got to get my mud tub down. This should have all my floats and trowels. I'm trying to see if I have a trowel to fit for the VCT adhesive. It should be a 16th by 16th by 16th, or a 16th by 16th by 3/32 would work. This is a transmission I just rebuilt, all the way from scratch, all the way down. Never done it before. It's an automatic transmission out of our '84 Ford Ranger, and it's a Ford C5 transmission. And I did. It took me a year just kind of picking at it as I went, but I've tore it all the way down, got a master rebuild kit, got the whole thing rebuilt, and it's actually ready to go back into the truck now, which I'll be doing hopefully this week. And anyway, yeah, that was a project amongst all my others. Okay. Let's see if we've got the right trowel. I'd love to not have to go to the hardware store to get a trowel, just to get down 3 little tiny pieces of tile. Yeah, it's a 3/6. That's too big. That's too big. Too big. That would probably be a little heavy as well. That's how it goes. You always have every single size and every single possible combination except for the one you need. I'm tempted to use, this is a 3/16 by 5/32 V-notch. I think for just this tiny little area I have to do, I think that might be fine. Okay, we'll pull these out, wipe them off. You don't want to get that adhesive on other stuff. It is sticky. Just trying to. Now we just have to wait for this to dry. You'll know it's dry when it turns clear. Once it goes clear, then it's okay to put the tile down.
Ready?
Yep.
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
boy.
that's light.
Now we can see in here.
Now we can see. Oh my God. Let me get out of the way.
Working on this floor. Maybe I'll point out what we're working on here.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure this floor in here is nice and flat to this. I still got a little bit of screwing to do on this piece here. I have to run down in the crawl space and get a beat on my joint spacing because I'm trying to screw it down to all the joists, but I keep missing them. So I need to drop a wire down, go in the crawl space, make a measurement over to a joist so I can get back on track, so I can fasten this board here down. And then I need to go in here, and there's going to be a wall here because this is just going to be a hallway and this is going to be a bathroom. So I need to figure out where I need to put that wall base. But the other thing I need to do, so we can keep running our hardwoods through into the hallway and out to the bedroom threshold out here, I need to make sure this is level enough. I know there's a big sway here, right through here, so I'm thinking I might have to do some self-leveler, but I'll get the 8-foot and the 4-foot out on the levels and span them across things, maybe run a string or two and see what I'm up against and what I got to do, and then we'll get that leveled out, and then we can continue these new hardwoods through this whole area and all the way to the bedroom. It's going to be so nice. And then we also have to run the hardwoods into this bedroom, which still is nothing but storage, nothing but storage. And of course the hardwoods are going to keep going into the kitchen once we get to this spot here. So lots to do on the hardwood stuff here. All right. The glue's all clear and tacky. It doesn't come off on your finger. That means it's ready to install these tiles. And it gets kind of tricky installing them when you're in a confined space and you're not just stopping at the end of a row, but you got to like try to get everything to fit in. So I've got to be kind of careful the way I do it. I think I'll start on this end and work that way. This last one I'll probably have to bow it up a little bit to get all the corners in, but we'll see. doing like the DCT, you rent a 100-pound ruler from the rental store. If you're doing 3 little tiles like this, I'm just using my little rubber roller and put some good weight on it. Okay, now I just need to make my transition strip and get my baseboard wraps on there, and this will be looking pretty good. My plan is to take, actually, instead of buying a $30 or $40 solid oak transition strip and waiting for that to get delivered and still have to customize it, still have to stain it, my idea was to take a piece of this flooring, just scrap that we had already ripped off for, going up against a wall, and do a bunch of passes on the table saw. Rip it down to about 1.5 inches wide. On the one side, I'll have to run it down the table saw so that it's only 1/8 of an inch thick. That'll overlap the wood, and then it'll come down 1/4 inch to touch this. And then, of course, I'll have to cut it to width to fit in between here, and that'll cover this gap. And it'll also cover these little cuts where I had to customize these baseboard pieces to fit both flooring heights. And then I can just probably silicone that down with some weights on it overnight. But I'll probably just do some taper cuts with my table saw and then just stain that with the dark stain to match this. And I think that'll look plenty good enough to make a nice, satisfactory and pretty transition from this hardwood to this tile. It's not too high and doesn't catch your toe when you're going over it. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to try to do. We'll have to see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll have to source something out online and order it and kind of work on it when we get here. But we'll try to make something that would be free. Well, I was about ready to get the table saw out and cut that transition strip, but a Facebook Marketplace find popped up and possibly 2 cool chairs for $50. We need a couple chairs for the end of our bed, so we decided we'd jump in the truck here and run out, and it's about a 45-minute drive. Hopefully they're cool.
Yep.
We'll keep you updated, and we'll get back on the project.
Yep.
So my goal is to take something that's shaped like this, and using the table saw and a few different passes, make it into this. And then this will overlay hardwoods, this side, and this side will come down to that VCT tile, and it'll have a beveled edge here and a beveled edge there, so that you can't catch your toe on it as you go over that threshold. And so I'm kind of making my own transition strip, just out of a chunk of flooring, my hardwood flooring. We'll see how it goes though.
Cool. It's gonna look nice.
Well, my profile came out pretty much the way I designed it. Pretty happy with the way I was able to do that with the table saw. Ready to paint these baseboards and glue that strip down, and we should be done. So we ended up getting those chairs off of Facebook Marketplace. Had to pretty much drive to the top of a mountain to get them, but the folks were really nice, and we got both these chairs for 50 bucks, and they even threw in this table for nothing. You know, so 50 bucks for 2 chairs and a table. Thomasville furniture, only a couple years old and very lightly used, no smells, no problems. Non-smoking, non-pets, so that's really cool. We had a couple chairs in here at the end of the bed, and we put them in the sunroom when we finished up the hardwood floors in there and got that room done. And this is where we watch TV. We mainly watch TV here. We usually lay in bed. But you know, now if somebody wants to watch a movie with us, if the kids are over or whatever and they want to watch a movie, there's a place for other people to sit here, or maybe Jody and I can sit there and have coffee and watch TV or whatever. But anyway, yeah, 50 bucks, 2 chairs and a table. Can't beat that. That was worth taking a little break and going on a little Facebook Marketplace date.